Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. So we'll start with the introduction of the organization, then introduction of the speaker, followed by the presentation by our speaker. Then we'll open the floor for Q&A. So starting with the introduction of the organization, the Agog mind, which in literal sense means a curious mind wanting to learn more. Four young girls from different parts of India came together for a college competition back in January and somehow felt the challenges holding back their ambitious mind are more or less similar. STEM resources. That is what we fell short for. So, is there a lack of resources? The answer is no. There are a lot of available resources. So, where's the problem? The problem lies in the awareness and accessibility. We believe that there's only two strata of people at present in our society. The first is the privileged class and the not so privileged class. The privileged class has the guidance, mentor, family background that paves the pathway for these resources. Therefore, to bridge this gap of opportunity and resources, we came up with this platform to build a space where that will be a pool of STEM resources. We want to address the key resources, categorizing them into four spheres: internships, project opportunities for all the high school and undergraduate students, free and affordable add-on courses to hone their soft and hard skills, unprecedented, underrated, yet highly promising career options, and STEM role models we can look up to. So, not just an organization, we want to build a community working towards this cause. We feel immense pleasure to announce that this initiative of ours is now being incubated by Kalpana Vigyan Shala International, who are on a mission to make STEM inclusive and accessible for all and to bridge the gender gap in STEM. We, the founders, are the part of this Kalpana cohort, and this has impacted and motivated us a lot. So, please, everyone, your support is really appreciated. So, kindly do follow our Instagram page because as of now, we have just started with this Insta page, but we'll definitely want to expand this further. Okay, so Khushi, can you please share the page link in the chat box if people they just want to go and check it out? Thank you, everyone. Please enjoy the session. And next, Kashish, please introduce our speaker to our audience.
Greetings everyone. I hope you all are doing well. Kashish this side. So I feel honored to introduce our guest speaker for the day, an extremely talented and dedicated person, Miss Anshita Singh. She is an undergraduate student pursuing BA Honors Psychology from Delhi University. At the same time, she is a research assistant at Columbia University, IIT Roorkee, and former research assistant at Harvard University. That's great, isn't it? She is enthusiastic about research in cognitive psychology and hopes to pursue academia. In addition to psychology, she is passionate about science, literature, astronomy, and believes in curiosity and developing skills. Also, aside from this, she is a great human, willing to help fellow students with her knowledge and resources through platforms like LinkedIn and Instagram. A very warm welcome, Anshita. We feel honored to have you here, and please take over this virtual stage from here. Thanks again.
Thank you so much for this very kind and nice introduction. It means so much. And I don't know, like, thank you so much for saying all of that. I'm still struggling with if I deserve it or not, but thank you so much. Should I like start like before starting or before going further? Do not call me ma'am, do not call me miss, do not call me whatever. I understand that. Yeah, imposter syndrome. um I know that everybody is kind here, very nice here, but I'm just not comfortable yet. It just makes me feel very old and as if I have my things together, which is not as true. um Other than that, my pronouns are she, her, and I can start presenting now. And I would encourage everybody to like switch on their camera if you all are comfortable. It would be like a nice interactive sphere.
Yeah, I was about to say that all the participants are requested to keep their cameras on so that they could see your faces while you are enjoying the session. And also, please don't unmute yourself unless we ask you. You can raise your hands or drop your queries in the chat box. We can we acknowledge you from there and we'll ask you. So just let's begin with the session.
Okay, so yeah, like when I am done presenting, you all can like either put your questions in the chat and we can get to it towards the end of the presentation. Okay, so as Kashish mentioned, I am pursuing BA Honor Psychology from Delhi University, Zakir Hussain Delhi College. I'm currently a research assistant at Dan Lab, Columbia University, and Psychology Lab at IIT Roorkee. And in March, or like I ended my position at Spelke Lab at Harvard University last month. So I was there for about 4 months. Okay, so my academic journey. So I was like a very usual kid. Like I had a lot of interests and I took up a lot of things at school. I was involved in dancing, writing, poetry, reciting poetry, and comparing and public speaking. I'm interested in astronomy and things like that. I was doing well academically when things were nice, when 10th class tak sirf CGPA hota tha, jab sab chill tha, everything was cool. And in those moments, my parents were always like, oh, you are good in science, you're doing well in maths, and you have to pursue engineering. So like that was what their line of thinking was. And since I was growing up with that thinking, it was kind of instilled in me, and I was like, okay, I'm like, cool, it makes sense because my father is an engineer, my uncles are engineer, everybody in my house is an engineer, all my cousins are engineers and whatnot. Everybody is an engineer. Nobody is either in medical or whatever. So it was quite revolutionary when, okay, we'll get to that. That's the plot. And then in class 6, I watched Ye Jawani Hai Diwani. So I'm pretty sure like half of you have gone through that phase, ki bhai travel karna hai, photos kheenchne hai, ya whatever. And I realized that I wanted to use my public speaking skills. And because I was good at communicating, because I was good at stage, I had stage experience, be it dancing, be it comparing, be it being a host or whatever. And I was like, उड़ना है, भागना है, दौड़ना है, गिरना भी है, but रुकना नहीं है, whatever. And that like stayed with me for like until I graduated high school. And then I told my parents कि देखो मुझे engineering नहीं करना, I'm not as interested. So like, what do you feel about it? And they were like,
excuse me, Anshita, I'm so sorry to interrupt. We have, attendees from outside India, so can we just keep the mode English only?
cool. Okay, thank you for letting
Yeah, I'm
me.
so sorry, sir, for
Oh,
interrupting.
like some of my memes would be so irrelevant for them. I'm sorry. It's okay. Like I'll explain. I have a lot of memes
It's
here.
okay. It's okay.
No
The
problem.
majority
Yeah,
is from in India. Yeah, majority from India, and you can just use some English essence so they can understand the essence because the expressions
Cool.
says what it is. So
yeah.
Cool.
no issues.
Cool. So I was, yeah. So, okay. So I was like, fine, I want to pursue mass communication, journalism, and I want to travel and use my skills in communication in journalism. And I told my parents that, see, like, this is what my plans are, and I don't really want to pursue engineering. But they were like, cool, do whatever you want to do, but like, first pursue engineering, like, first get a secure degree or whatever. And then I got in, okay, I can explain here. Okay. And then I got in standard 10th, and one of my friends, he mentioned, we were just chilling, and he said, oh, Anshita, I see you at Harvard, and at the back of some classroom, just like sitting with a paper and writing a poem or something. And that hit me. And I was like, wow, okay, like this person has such cool expectations from me, and I'm just struggling with my parents. And then I was like, okay, cool. Like, definitely there are more opportunities abroad, and there are like better universities abroad, and I would probably want to pursue that. So I applied. I decided that I want to apply to universities, and at the same time, I kept my parents in the dark that I'm going to pursue engineering. And I was like, cool, I'll take the engineering entrances too. I'll study for mains and JE, whatever. And but at the same time, I want to apply to universities abroad. So they were like, cool, yeah, like until and unless you are thinking about taking the tests and entrances or whatever. And then I got into universities like UIUC, which ranks 7th in psychology. And I can come later to how I got introduced to the subject and how my interest developed there. But mostly it was, I was mostly applying for courses in psychology and English. And I got into universities in the US. Um, and then, and I had PCM in my 11th and 12th, just BTW, by the way. And and I bombed my like class 12th, 11th, like 12th boards and my class 11th. 11th and 12th, I bombed my like all my exams because it was like one of the very low times for me because I had to convince my parents that I don't want to do this. Even though I loved science, I loved maths, but I scored so bad in all my exams because of the tussle that was going on with my parents and whatever. But then I was very determined that, see, I don't want to pursue engineering and I'm not going to do that. I'm not interested. And while transitioning into the undergraduation, I decided that I would either pursue psychology or English. And I got into universities like BHU and Christ and whatnot, mostly through entrances. And I realized in those during those exams that CBSE boards or scores don't really matter until and unless you are very confident about your skills in math or communication or quant basically, because those are the things that they ask in entrances. And I aced all of those entrances. I ranked like in top 100 or top 50 as compared to my JEE mains, wherein I ranked like 10 lakh, 20 lakh, I don't know. So many zeros. So and then finally I got into Delhi University through my dance quota, which was like I got into through ECA quota. I had a lot of experience. I had an undergraduate degree in Bharatnatyam, and I had a lot of competition experiences. I had won national competitions in Bharatnatyam, in classical dance, and whatever. So basically, I did not got into Delhi University through merit. I got in through ECA. Then the first year, I spent the first year dancing for my dance society. We won a lot of prizes, but it was very taxing because I knew in those moments that I was an academic person, and I took this college. I took Zakir Hussain because I wanted to pursue psychology. I mean, I could have pursued English, but I chose my college because I wanted to pursue psychology. And then the first year went by. I did not get a lot of time to study my subjects, my papers, and it was mostly dancing. And I did not score very well. My GPA was really low. But I knew that I was interested, and I would like. And then COVID happened, and then I got all the time in the world to read books, to spend time doing internships, pursuing psychology, and really studying. And then I did a few internships, and it was in those times when I really understood the tragedy of the field in India. Like, these internships were so exploitative, and I don't know, like most of these internships were paid, wherein I had to pay for the internship. And just a disclaimer, like, do not fall for these internships. You do not need to pay to gain experience, to learn things or whatever. And then that was when I decided, whatever, like, even if I'm not very experienced, I just want to get in touch with people abroad or people who are doing something in the field. I realized that I want to pursue psychology in my master's, and I was more inclined towards clinical, but I wanted to gain some experience in the field. So I started reaching out to people through email, and some of them reverted back. Mostly it was, oh, this is COVID, like during the COVID time, we are not recruiting people, or we don't have positions open, or you cannot work internationally or whatever. And then like after 3 or 4 months of emailing people, finally I got a position at Columbia University. I took an interview and I was able to join the lab. And then I reached out to people at IIT Roorkee because I wanted to gain some experience at how research is done in India. And one of the professors at IIT Roorkee reverted back, and I was able to join there. When I had my Columbia email address, I was able to reach out to people outside Delhi University outside of India, but I mean, that email address basically added authenticity to my context, and then people were reverting back better, and I was able to network with a lot of people, and then I started at Harvard University because some of the topics I found really interesting at what they were researching there. Sorry. So my introduction to psychology. People who get this meme or who have seen this meme, like, please laugh. I like it's really funny. Anyway, so in class 11, my fifth subject was psychology. That was when I was introduced to psychology. I had no plans in pursuing the subject seriously because it was just my fifth subject along with PCM. Because back then I was like on to pursuing engineering. But anyway, and then while preparing for my applications for undergraduation in the US.
Kushi, you got unmuted, and Kashish, you too.
Okay, I can continue. Okay, so while preparing for my undergraduate application, the organization that I was taking help from, this was this consultancy agency who were helping me prepare for my application. They suggested that I take the AP exam in psychology, and then I was introduced to this very nice teacher who's now a clinical psychologist at AIMS, Delhi. And she was so amazing. She taught the subject so beautifully. And I remember this class on neuroplasticity, which is still in my head engraved like anything. And I'm still so interested in neuropsychology and neuroscience and just brain stuff because of that particular class, and it was so cool. And the way she taught, it just motivated me and encouraged me to know more about the subject. And that was when I got fascinated with the human brain and behavior. And back then I was leaning towards clinical and counseling psychology because that is all people usually know in India in regards to psychology. And then yeah, like, I'm doing my undergraduation, it is happening somehow, I don't know. And these so, like, based on everything that I've been able to do, these are the few pointers or a few headings that I've come up with that we can talk moving forward. So after joining the lab, it wasn't before that I realized this, but after joining the lab, I realized the importance of research. And if you think about it, like, everything, like, whatever documentation exists in any field, those are all research papers. Like, those are all studies in a journal, or those are all books that are published somewhere. And, like, even your textbooks, which have like small references with, Bandura 1982 or whatever, and all those references are actually references to research paper. And while looking for these images, I realized that everything, like, even the discovery of 2 new satellites of Pluto, or the principles of multi-level modeling, which is statistics, everything is research. Everything is research paper. Everything is a research paper. And when you realize this, it just makes sense how important research is for progress in any field, for progress in, or like, the relationship between on-ground work and research. Everything comes down to doing studies, doing research in that particular field. And it is so important to stay updated with what is happening in your field. Okay, so based on my experience at the lab, these are a few tools that are important in research. Collaborative tools, OSF, Slack, GitHub. Data analytics tools like Excel, SPSS, R, Python. No matter what field you are in, you're doing English, you're doing history, you're doing psychology, you're doing science, you're doing engineering, whatever, you need to learn a programming language right now. It is like the up and coming skill in STEM, outside of STEM, in research, everywhere. And like I chose psychology, and I was so sure, oh, like I don't have to do data analytics, or I don't have to do coding or whatever, and I was so sure. But then when I joined the lab, I realized, wow, people are really using this for so many purposes. And then other thing would be navigating portals to access research papers, which a lot of you are asked in your questions about how to access research paper, and we can do that right now. So I usually use Google Scholar and PubMed to access research papers, and I use Sci-Hub to. I can explain this really quickly. So if I go to Google Scholar, let me type memory, like a research in memory or something. And let me open Sci-Hub. Okay, so usually in Google Scholar or let's see, or Google Scholar or PubMed or whatever, usually these aren't open access. You know, these papers are not open access. You would probably have to log in, or you'd have to pay some amount. But how you can work around that is you can copy the DOI address and you can paste it on Sci-Hub, and it would generate the document for free. So you don't have to pay to access research papers, which is really cool, because earlier I thought that, oh, you need to be in an institution, or you need to be like, you need to have money, or you need to pay to access research papers. But then this is like a really cool tool to find research papers. Okay, so the lab structure in the US is very different from what we have here. We don't have labs exactly. So basically, we have professors, and those professors who are the principal investigator of a lab usually have postdocs, people who have completed their PhD and are researching on certain topics. They have PhD students who are pursuing their PhD program and are working with the PI on various projects. Then there are lab managers who manage the lab, as in they would take care of recruiting participants, data analyses, recruiting research assistants. And then research assistants are usually undergraduate, post-bachelorate, or master's students who are contributing to the work in the lab. So opportunities in research in the US mostly revolve around these three areas. One would be research assistant positions, which people with bachelor's or post-bachelorate programs or master's degree could pursue this position. Other things are summer internships, winter internships, etc. And people who are, these programs or these internships are usually open for undergraduate students. Then there are lab manager positions, wherein I think each lab has one or two lab manager positions, and people could pursue this or like apply for these positions after a bachelor's degree. And these are usually like a job, so they are paid positions. I'm not too sure about these two positions, like it varies from lab to lab or university to university, wherein research assistants are paid or not paid. I am not being paid. I'm on a voluntary position in all of these universities. So that depends on the lab. Now, how do we avail all of these opportunities? So one way is to like cold email professors, grad students, or lab managers, or fill out lab applications. The other way to find summer internship is to fill out the applications of summer internships. And then the most interesting way, or like a way that I recently came to know about, is following academic Twitter. So academic Twitter is basically following professors and graduate students on, like, following their Twitter accounts, basically. So you can find out about these professors and you can look them up on Twitter, and they talk a lot about their personal experiences, professional experiences, their paper, what they're working on, and if any positions open in their lab or labs they know about. Um, Here's how you can find and choose labs. You can ask these questions that can help you choose a lab. So basically, what are the questions that the lab is exploring? Does the lab interest you? Like whatever the lab is doing, does that interest you? What methods is the lab using? Which population is the lab working with? What are the data analytics tools that the lab is using? What are some of their ongoing projects? Are they accepting RA applications, or how do they accept RA applications? All of these information is usually mentioned in a lab website. these are the things. So the most important thing to do before emailing is to be thorough with their work. Like, you don't want to email each and everybody and be like, oh, I'm interested in your work, I need a position, or I want to help you out, or whatever. You need to know what they're doing and be sure of what projects they're working on. So just like Michael Scott says, I don't want somebody sucking up to me because they think I'm going to help their career. I want them sucking up to me because they genuinely love me. So that is what everybody wants, don't they? And then here are a few things that you can include in a cold email. Cold email is what you email when you reach out to a random stranger who you don't know, who you haven't talked with, and ask them for a position or an opportunity. So basically, you would introduce an introductory paragraph about who you are, where you are, what you're doing, then what your interests are, how they match the interest of the person you are emailing, then what are some past experiences, and what are some relevant skills that could help in their projects, your CV, resume, and your scorecard. Um, to write an effective cold email, keep it short and sweet, and like be sure of how you address the person. Salutation. You don't want to use like gender specific words or pronouns. You don't want to use Miss, Mr., sir, madam. Please do not use those words. Very unprofessional. What you could use instead is respected professor, or yeah, greetings and things like that. Like, use gender neutral pronouns and words. Very important. Bolden the keywords to make your email easier to skim. Clearly convey your expectations. Don't keep it vague, like, oh, I want your guidance, or I want your help. Don't keep it vague. Be very sure that, oh, I want to help with your project, could you tell me more about your project, right? So like, um, keep it like, keep a few sentences that bring the reader to action, or like tells what action is required out of them. Then mention if you're open to volunteer. So usually when somebody is emailing from an external institution, they would assume that you're expecting a pay or you're expecting something. In case you're open to volunteer, mention that. In case you want a pay, mention that as well. It's good to be as transparent as possible. Then you can follow up at least 3 working days later, and just once. You don't need to follow up twice or thrice. Like, if you're not receiving a response, let it go. Things to keep in mind: be thorough with their work. Be absolutely thorough with their work. Very important. Like, just imagine, like, while sending out an email, just think to yourself, what if this person replies back and is expected to like talk to you, and what if you have to talk to them about their work? So be thorough with their work in that sense. Do not email a lot of people in the same department, because those people talk. So if they realize that, oh, like, you've sent out emails to all the people in the department, it would show poorly, because it would show that you're not interested in their work per se, but you're more interested in getting that position or something. Be considerate of the time zones. So our evening would be their mornings. So usually I would email at 6:30 or 7ish, when it is like around 9 or 10 a.m. there in the morning. Then do not expect a reply. This is sad, but a true reality, that people are busy. They do not get time to revert back to each and every email. So like, the first positive response for an interview that I got was after 4 months, and I have sent over 500-600 emails. So yeah, like, instead use this process of emailing to get to know people, to get to know your field, and see what is happening in research, what are some studies going on around, and things like that. Use this as like a learning opportunity. How could you be a better applicant? Honestly, I did not know. I haven't had any experience with research. I did not know SPSS or R or Python or any data analytics tools or anything before joining the lab. So if you have any of those skills, write it in your CV, write it in your email. It could really help your chances. Ace the basics of data analysis and statistics. If you're from a psychology background, definitely you need to get on statistics, like be thorough with statistics. And I'm a very I'm being very saintly while saying this, but I myself need to get to it. But in general, data is like understanding data is the need of the hour. There's data everywhere, especially in research. There's data everywhere. So if you're interested in research, you need to understand data analysis. Then, in case you have limited experience, start a blog. It is the best way to represent what you're interested in. You can review research papers and summarize them in your blogs and write things that matter to you. And in general, be curious and open to networking. Be open to talk to people. That's like the most amazing thing, to know about what people are up to around you or in your field. And yeah, so I was asked to give out like tips to STEM students, or like tips to students or whatever. So I don't feel like I'm in the position to like offer tips or like call it offering tips or whatever. Instead, my takeaway from whatever my journey has been until now would be to, first of all, like watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix. Amazing documentary, and it would like change your behavior towards social media if you're struggling with your time on social media. Then drop out of the rat race. Like, you don't want to see what other people are doing, whatever. Like, be a very kind, nurturing presence to everyone. Like, offer your help or seek help. Do not compete with you, like with others, but yourself. Like, just compete with yourself. Do not pay for resources. Do not pay for courses. Do not pay for internships, workshops, whatever. Like, it's not worth it. There are so many people who are offering free support, who are offering free resources just to help out people. And to learn honestly, you do not need to pay for anything. All you need to do is pay for your degrees, which is okay. But to learn things, do not pay for courses, because YouTube, like, there's a lot of things on YouTube. A lot of free courses are there on Coursera, edX, and whatnot. Network selflessly. Like, do not have an intention behind, I want to talk to this person because I want to get this or get that. No, just like network because you want to know that person and learn from that person, and you just want to learn like and do whatever they're doing, or get resources for yourself. Like, be selfless in terms of when you're talking to people, and be open to doing that. Like, it's in general, people are very nice. Constantly upskill, always learn, like keep learning new tools, be it animating videos or like video editing, designing, graphic designing. These are all helpful skills. Like, even in research, I like the study design at Columbia University. So the logo for that study, I got the chance to make that logo because I volunteered that, oh, I know designing and I can try out a few logo designs for the study. And now that logo is on the flyers and on the lab website and stuff. So that's cool. Read research articles, like start doing that right away. Even if you're hoping to get into a corporate sector, industrial sector, it is always helpful to stay on top on what is happening in your field and be aware of what the recent research articles are or studies are. Then follow the people in your field. Like, know these people who are writing these research papers, or know the people that you look up to. Find those people, follow them on Twitter, follow them on YouTube or whatever. And then, of course, prioritize your well-being. None of it is like greater than how you're feeling right now, or how well you want to be physically or mentally. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, though it is not. So thank you. And let me know if you all have any more questions or if I can help you out with anything. I talk more about my experiences on my Instagram, on LinkedIn, so feel free to follow those places. And then I have a lot of resources on my Linktree. I have added a lot of resources to free art courses, Python courses, internships, and things like that. So if you're interested, you can look at them too.
Thank you so much for such an amazing talk. It was better than a talk, I must say, because we got to hear you first of all. So it was not recorded and it was relatable to much sense. Like how you portrayed that you didn't want to do engineering, but you had a peer pressure that you should go for engineering. That is something that most of us face. that like some of our here who we are from medical background, so I can say about the four of us. So we were like somehow pressurized by our peers to go for MBBS or NEET, and we didn't have interest in that. We wanted to go for multidisciplinary courses, so we choose life sciences. So there are multiple options for people, but the society wants us to fit in a box. So that's something.
Exactly.
And yeah, I would just like to sum up your entire talk with just 2-3 pointers. The takeaway that I got basically. So first thing, like starting in our reverse chronological order, network is very crucial. We should network, and we should trade our network, and this should not be a very a lazy network. We should be very focused about what we want from this network. A productive network we should create, so that we can benefit it from them. Whether we are on social media, whether we are on Instagram or Twitter, we can make it productive for us. So that's in our hands. Then comes that how important is research, and this was something that we were actually aiming for. That this should go in a talk, and you very well explained that. The importance of research is not just with the STEM subjects, not just with science, mathematics, or engineering and medical. It is with every possible subject one can list. So that was really awesome. And now I would just like to open the floor for questions. So participants can raise their hands. I recognize them and they can ask their questions. Also, they can drop their questions in the chat box and we can take that up.
I think the chat box
Yeah.
is already flooded with questions starting.
Yeah, there are so much of thank you. So I'll just start with the questions.
Also,
There's a
Anshita
question
will
from
send you screenshots on how people they are love reacting your presentation and just applauding you. It's possible in Teams. I will send you the screenshot. You'll love it.
Oh, thank
yeah,
you. Thank you so much,
constantly
everyone.
from on your memes, on your words, they were reacting, they were showing hearts, they were like applauding. So it was the audience really enjoyed listening to you. So
I am
it was
glad. Like, I am a very Mimi and Jiffy person, so I'm sorry if it was too informal. But and I'm also sorry if they were really lame. But I had fun making the.
no, it's
We are
okay.
all
We had
lame.
fun and we had fun learning, so that's fine.
Cool.
Okay, I'll just take the questions up now.
Cool.
Yeah. So the first question is from Trisha. When will there be new openings to apply to be a RA? I guess she
Okay.
would be more specific.
No,
Yeah.
I see I see what they're meaning. So basically, the thing is, um, I apply like I did not had the intention to like I didn't even know that RA positions exist, so I would just like randomly email people. But the thing is, labs usually open to RA positions when the semester ends. So basically, after the summer, they would have new position for fall, or like after the fall ends, they would have new positions for um, whatever. But in case you want to like start with reaching out to people, because that takes time. Sorry. So you could just like start emailing people, and then they could let you know if the position are open or not. I would say that professors usually don't get back as soon. It would be helpful to reach out to lab managers and PhD students. They are more on top of their emails because they don't receive a lot of them as compared to a professor. I hope that answered your question.
I hope the same. That there is a similar question from Tanya. That should we apply for RA position if we do not have any prior experience in research?
Yes, please do. Because when I applied, I like my basic intent was networking and just like getting even a chance to talk to somebody there, just to like see if I could help out with anything. And mostly it was just seeking an experience because the internships here are like super shitty. So yes, definitely apply even if you don't have any experience. But in case you're looking to, sometimes people don't even have anything to write on their CV or don't have anything to write in the email. So in case you're looking for something that like that, you can include your courses that you are taking in college, or courses that you're taking on Coursera or something. Or you could include your blog, as I mentioned. Like you can start a blog right away, add a few articles, and then start sending out emails. That could be helpful. And definitely start learning how to code, even if you're not interested, because it's like a very useful and important skill. Sorry, but that's how it is.
The raised hand. Asmi has raised a hand. Asmi, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. If I'm
Also, it's
pronouncing that wrong.
requested if you can just switch on your camera, it will be really
Yeah.
great. Whosoever is speaking. Yeah.
I would have loved to switch my camera on, but I had undergone a dental surgery 2 days back, and
Oh.
I'm not in a state to turn my camera on. I also look a creepy, chumpy head right now, to be very honest, and I cannot find words, Anshita, to describe how beautiful, wonderful this session was. And I read that you're very much interested into astrology and literature and poems. So we would love to receive that face-to-face recital in a virtual way. If you could recite any poem for any of us, any
Oh my
piece,
God.
if it's there
Yeah,
readily
we would
available
love
to you
to.
right now.
Oh my God. It's been a year because as and when I got into the lab position, I don't have the time to like, I haven't written a poem in a year almost. And oh my God, thank you for saying that. I would definitely love that, but yeah, let's see. And I hope you're doing well after your surgery.
Yeah, I'm much better, and after the session, I'm superbly well. And
Oh,
also, I wanted to ask you this question, as you are interested into astrology as well.
just
Do
a
you
quick correct.
believe?
If you're
Um.
asking, so I'm interested in astronomy and not
Oh, okay,
astrology.
okay. My bad. I'm highly mistaken here. I'm really sorry. Apologies.
No
And it
problem.
was really beautiful attending your session here. Can we stay in touch on Instagram?
Of course, like you feel free to text me or have ask questions or follow or whatever. I'll be happy to stay connected.
All right. Thank you. Many thanks again.
No problem. Thank you.
It was great. So maybe we can like reserve the poem part for the end. Like the best things happen towards the end, so we can reserve that for later.
Yeah, even I
Complete with the
insist.
Q&A.
Sure.
Yeah, and complete the Q&A because there are some people now who wants to answer, get their answers. Some requested to end the session at 7 because they have other meetings. So we would like if you could just answer questions first.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'll ask Sutapa Goswami. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Um, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi. So, I've been like indirectly bombarding Anshita with questions. WhatsApp pe, Instagram pe, kahin pe, I mean, sorry, English. So wherever, I mean, you can think of like, I like have realized the importance of research recently, and I had a few questions. So, um, like in the US, I've always seen this thing like 3 or 4 year bachelor's thing that they require like a 4 year bachelor's thing. And I saw Anshita's story once that she was applying this year, and I was like, 1 second, how is that possible? Because everybody's like, after a bachelor's, they want to do a diploma or they want to do like a fellowship or something in order to make up for the credits. So I didn't really understand like, is it possible to be applied at the end of our second year? There's so much like I didn't
I'll
know about
explain.
this.
I'll explain. So the thing is, it is possible if you're like you have a good GPA. So the thing is, like the CGPA. So there are organizations that translate your score into a 4 year undergraduate degree. So one of those organization is called WES. Um, and I know a few people who got into master's program, PhD program right after their 3 year undergrad, even a PhD program right after their three year undergrad. So it is definitely possible. It is like it takes like, definitely very competitive, but it is not a restriction. And like most of the universities would ask you for that translation in the first semester of your master's or a PhD or whatever. But other than that, it is not an issue if you are scoring the first division in your um, degree. I think that is what I'm aware of. Like you need to be like get the first division in your degree, and I think there's something about your university being A credited or
The
A plus plus
NAAC
credit exactly. So I
accreditation.
think if you so my college is A credited, and I'm currently thankfully scoring first division thanks to one of my classmates. I guess he's here, Danish. He helps me a lot with my assignments. So I would stay up doing these meetings and lab work, and he would just help me with the assignment. Anyway, so yeah, so like if you're scoring well, I think that is definitely possible translating your score.
Can I add something, Anshita, if
Mhm.
you allow?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, so adding to that, Shatapa, I think we know people that got into, top colleges like U Chicago and like Pennsylvania and everything with just a 3 year undergraduate. And they did not have they did not even took a gap year. They just applied in their second year and they are going for this, fall 21 itself. They'll graduate in this 21. And I think one of the big thing you need to look up to that your CV should be equivalent to them, like the ones they will be applying. And I mean the US student, they will also be applying, right? So that should be equivalent, that type of research experience or the experience, background experience you have. Also take your standardized test that you are going to give, the GRE or GMAT, scored very well, because it actually shows that even if you have a 3 year degree, you are equivalent to an American student or like that. So you have that kind of merit. So you need to take your GRE or GMAT very seriously, and also the CV that will help. And I think many Indian students are going to America. So and India and China, they do have a 3 year bachelor program, and it's not an issue anymore. Like Anshita mentioned, WS, they actually convert your credentials to the American system. So it's not an issue. Keep going, keep the hype up, and just let's do it like that.
Also, a quick thing, a lot of the universities have waived the GRE requirement because of COVID. So you can look into that as well. Like you don't necessarily need to take a GRE because it's optional in a lot of the universities. So yeah,
Yeah,
Thank
COVID has
thank
some
you so
certain
much.
incentives as well.
sorry.
Yeah,
What?
so yeah, I was just saying that COVID has given certain incentives as well in terms of admission process and some
Yeah,
relaxations.
and like
That matter.
I feel it was very helpful for me because I got to get out of my dance society because I wasn't able to give a lot of time to academics. And moreover, most of these labs were open to recruit people internationally because everything was virtual and because things were happening
Yeah, true.
virtually. So
So maybe we can have Krutika next. Krutika, you can go ahead and ask her question. You can unmute yourself.
So I think you answered the question when I said that. So you were here all the time, and all the assisting was doing online.
yeah, it was all virtually. It
And the
was all
second,
virtually.
okay, and the second question was that what were your daily tasks? I mean, what did you actually do while doing the
Um,
research?
so it was mostly coding the data. So coding and storing data and running analysis. Um, what else? Attending the lab meetings, which were important to like stay updated with what's happening. And in addition to that, my mentors, like my grad student, the PhD student that I'm working with, he offered me to pursue an independent project. So I'm currently conducting secondary analysis on the data. So like that is my independent project, and I'm hoping to finish it before my applications. Let's see how that goes.
It's amazing.
Okay. And another question was that so I am from an I had taken humanities. So I'm from a humanities background. So will they ask me that, for example, you need to learn to have coding, or you need basic statistical knowledge?
They won't ask you, of course, but so what field are you in? I'm sorry if you don't mind.
I completed my bachelor's in psychology.
Psychology.
BA.
So,
Yes.
yeah. So like, dude, your psychology, you have to like be on top of statistics. I know, like, I'm being too hale and gaudy when I say, oh, be on study statistics. Even I need to catch up with a lot of things, but it's definitely because psychology is the social sciences. It is collecting data, which is quantitative in addition to being qualitative. So you have to, like, had it been history or had it been English, I wouldn't have thought about, like, I can't think of any way to have quantitative analysis included in these fields. But being a psychology student, it's like statistics is one of our course papers. So yeah.
But the statistics that we study is very minimal as compared to the analysis that you have.
No, it's not minimal. If you look at like the DU coursework is amazing. The way they wrap everything up in a 3-year degree is amazing. I agree the execution, the teachers or professors, whatever, it's weird, but the coursework, the syllabus is awesome. Like even as compared to the US degree, we are on top of a lot of things. The only thing is that we need to be thorough with the concepts and not with, oh, I know the formula, I can take the exam tomorrow and I can just add on the formulas and be done with it and then forget about it. No, you'd have to like be sure of the concepts and stuff. And just following the DU coursework, the DU syllabus is more than enough. It's not high level or something. It is appropriate to an undergraduate person.
Okay, so I did my graduation from GU, St. Xavier's Ahmedabad. So I'm not aware of the DU.
Oh, I think the syllabus is like available online, and you could like use the books in reference, like whatever the books are mentioned.
Sure, thank you.
Sorry. Yeah. And I hope your questions are okay.
Also, yeah, so people who's been answered can lower their hands, like click on the same icon and your hand will get lowered, so that it's better for us to understand them. Yeah, thank you. Then Khushi, take up like from Trisha or
Yeah.
Aditi.
No, I've taken a question from Tasha. I'll just take a question from Alchisa now. Are the very courses on edX, what's the time and effort?
I'm sorry, what? Your voice broke.
Yes, sorry. Yeah. So it's the question from Archisa. Are the verification certificates to free data science courses on edX worth the time and effort? There are some data science courses on edX she's talking about.
So, okay, I have opinions about this. If you want to learn something, just learn it no matter what. Like even when I stated in my CV that I've taken these courses, nobody asked me for the certificate. If you're finding the course on edX or Coursera relevant to your needs, it is answering the questions you have, you're learning something, like there's no harm in completing those courses, no matter the certificates. I hope that answered your question. But like in case you're looking for certificates, like I haven't bought any of my certificates. I've just completed my course and have mentioned them on my CV because I know my stuff. Like I know I've completed that course and I know whatever there was in the course. So even if somebody asks, I'd be like, I haven't bought it, but I know what this course has to offer. So yeah, certificates are definitely not a requirement.
It's just that we need to be open to learning. Whatever resources we have, we should have that like curiosity to learn and to grow our knowledge. So that's the thing. I guess this answered Heshika's question as well. So because she was asking a similar question from certificates from Coursera and BITL. So I guess it was similar to that. Next is a message from Anushka. She's saying hi to all of us and then thank you for the informative session. She wanted to know if you have ever had a research paper published.
Okay, I think before that, Suparna asked a question, how one can dare to switch career. Please dare. Dare. Go ahead. Do whatever you want to do. Just do it. Like, and the thing is, I really look up to people who switch fields because they have like been in a field and they're willing to give all of that up to get into a field which is new to them. So it just shows that you're really passionate about that field. So like dare to switch career, look for opportunities, learn about that field, like get through with the basics and just pursue whatever you want to. Coming to what Anushka asked, I did get a paper published. So it was earlier last year. And I was really excited, but I'll write a research paper. I will be like a cool published author, whatever. And then what I did was I had this topic in my head and conducted some literature review. I read a couple of papers and I wrote a paper myself, and then I submitted it to this random journal, and they, like, within 3 hours they published my paper. They took like 1,500 rupees from me and they published the paper. I was really excited, like, wow, this is easy. And then later when I discussed it with a couple of people, I realized that there are so many predatory journals which take money to publish paper, which is not the right way to do science. I do not mention those papers on my CV. I do not mention that paper to anybody now because it's useless now. So do not put in your efforts. And now that topic is like, now my article is there in the internet, and now I cannot use that content because it would be plagiarism or whatever. So the idea is that do not fall for these things. But if you're asking about research paper published, so the project that I'm working on at Columbia, I've been working on for like 9 months there now, and I will be receiving like an authorship position, like even though I'm not the first author, but I'll be an author on that paper because of my duration working on that project.
Okay, it's something like a co-author or assistant sort of something. Co-authors are there, no?
Yeah,
For
right.
a paper.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I will be a co-author. I'm not yet, but like, we're planning to add my name to the list.
So next is from Suchaita is saying thank you again. Then is Reshma. Could you explain more about your interview experience in Columbia University? Like, what do they ask actually?
Right. Sorry. It was very chill. Like, even at Columbia and Harvard, both my interview sessions, like I had two or three more interviews at labs at Stanford, and I think Harvard, another lab at Harvard, but I did not make through in those interviews. So basically, they would ask about your experiences, what you're doing, how much are you interested in their work, and then it is very casual and very nice. I did not get into the other two labs because I did not have experience with neuroimaging. So they were studying neuroimages and MRI data and things like that, which I did not have experience with. So that is why they had to take on another um, member, another applicant.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So the basically application and the interview depends from person to person, and they basically ask about you and yourself, that how much you're interested and how much you are open to learning, and how often you take initiatives and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So there's last question from Tanya. Which applications do you prefer for coding data?
What do you mean? Coding data as in
I
like
guess
programming
about
language?
programming. I guess for coding data, maybe to like analyze data. There's certain programming tools being used nowadays. So maybe she's asking that.
Cool.
Or data analysis and journaling. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they mean about okay. So I usually use R and Python, and I'm still learning both of these languages, but like I'm more familiar with R. And if you're like really interested in statistical analyses and data visualization, I feel like R is a better option, but that is just my experience. People do the same things in Python as well, but both of these are like good languages to start with. And I have added free YouTube courses, beginner courses in my link tree, which is in my Instagram bio if anybody is interested.
That's amazing. We linked your Instagram in the chat box so they can refer.
Thank you.
Muskan just asked a follow-up question where we can learn R and Python, and I guess you answered that the free resources available. Yeah, so I'll just ask Trisha now to unmute herself and ask her question. Sorry for letting you wait for so long. You can ask her question now.
Hi, no problem. I just had one question. So when I was looking for some of these research labs, they also like suggested some people to already have some form of experience in clinical settings. Do you need to have that? Like, did you have that to apply to any research labs or anything?
So I'm not as experienced with clinical labs because the labs that I have worked in are mostly experimental labs. But if they mention experience with participants, or like I'm sorry, like experience with clinical population, then I guess that is important, which is like again hard to find in India, like opportunities to have time with clinical population. So I'm not sure about that.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Of course.
Hi, Anshita. I have one request.
Sure.
Yeah. So can you show us like how to look for labs? I think in one of your reels you did, but can you just do it live so that?
Sure, of course. Let me present. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Please. Okay, so what I used to do basically is Department of Psychology, Columbia University, for example, and then whichever university you want to look for, and then they would have a separate department website. Sorry, this is taking some time. Then I would go to people, and then probably faculty to look at professors who are working. So I would look at, like, these are all professors, and some of them have their own labs. So I could quickly find my own PI, Dr. Nim Tottenham. I think she's somewhere towards the like most of these people have, yeah, okay, Professor Nim Tottenham. I would go to her profile. I would look at what she's working on, and I have the website to her lab. Okay, she knows working. And now I will be on the lab website. And here I could look at what they're working on, what are their questions, how to like participate, like these are all, and then research topics of interest, their publications, so what the lab is working on, then people. On people you could reach out to PhD students and lab managers. So basically lab managers recruit research assistants. So you can reach out to lab managers or graduate students who are mostly PhD students who are pursuing their PhD. And you can find my image here too. Yeah. Okay. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. Then after all this, like looking for what they are researching on and everything, should we then just email them or look for like if there is any opening or is there any position?
Are you asking if labs indicate that they have positions open?
Yeah.
I think most of the labs indicate their availability to recruit PhD students, but they don't mention a lot of the times about research assistants. For that, you could reach out to the lab manager and see if they are recruiting. Or you can follow people on Twitter. A lot of people, whenever there's an opening, they mention on their profile. Oh yeah,
Okay.
Professor Nim Tottenham is amazing. She's so cool as a PI as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
I can stay back for some more time if people have more questions or just want to hang out.
Yeah, Ashi just raised her hand. Ashi, you can unmute yourself and say whatever you have to say.
Thanks, Kriti. Anshita, I wanted to ask, like, what makes a normal email different from the others? Like, what specific we can add to our email which can actually help us? Like, apart from a normal CV and the normal words, what actually can help us to differentiate it from the other ones? Like, you have written so many, so what did you actually thought that, yes, the ones which were selected were actually very different from the others?
It's not in the email, honestly. It's just about the person you are emailing, and if they're looking for a person, and if by your CV or by your experiences they think you will be a good fit. So it's usually not about how you write the email, because, and I don't, like, people have asked me a lot of the times, oh, could you please share your email, or like, could you share a template? And I don't believe in that, because it is the first point of contact. with a strange person and you don't want to use somebody else's template, right? You want to like write it yourself and um, but one thing that you need to be aware of is there are no grammatical errors, spelling errors, and things like that. Other than that, usual things which are like, oh, introduction to yourself, what are your interests, how those interests connect with the person you're emailing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
There are a few more questions in the chat box. One is from Lakshita. She's asking about, can you say which is the best BA psychology college in India?
I first of all don't call me ma'am. Secondly, oh sorry, did you mean psychology? Okay. No, like I like don't ask me questions about colleges and stuff because like I don't know, like I'm not a career counselor or I haven't experienced I don't know, like Google or something. I don't know. I'm not the right person to answer this. Yeah.
Yeah, there is another question from Tisha. Is it easy to manage research and college at the same time? And how do you do it?
Danish, my friend, he left.
That's my question as well. That's my question as well.
Oh God, like where is so I rely on this one person in college who's my very nice friend, and we would usually divide our assignments. But on like in the very honest sense, I was not learning anything from my college classes. To be like very frank, like I did not learn like even in fact like my interest in statistics and maths just dropped because the way my professors taught it. But then when I joined the lab and I attended these workshops on coding and data analysis and statistics, and I was like, okay, this is cool, I want to learn more or something. So but then yeah, I do have to stay up late to manage the time zones, and from the 20th my college classes are starting and I would probably have to attend those too. But the best thing that has been keeping me at it is how much I'm enjoying the whole thing. I'm really enjoying working in a lab, doing my own analyses, working with such intellectual people who are way ahead in my field as compared to the people we have here in India. And I'm learning a lot and I'm enjoying a lot. So that's helpful.
Okay, so there are some fun questions. I'll just take them in the end. There are comments basically. So it's just a, I guess, request from Ashi that how could we take follow-ups? How should we take follow-ups and how should be done? In a polite manner, I guess.
Okay. So for follow-up emails, usually send it after like at least 3 to 4 working days. Like you don't want to send a follow-up email on a Sunday or a Saturday, based on their time. And in the follow-up email, you just want to write greetings. I just wanted to check in if you got a chance to um, if you could tell me about this thing and like highlight. So I wrote a LinkedIn post about it. Let me just like quickly, I can just share it here. Like it's on my Instagram if people are interested. Mostly it would just be asking the same thing, like in just one line, like, do you have any positions open? And I would be grateful if I could get an opportunity to contribute to your work or help you out with your work, something like that. Just a few lines, like 2 to 3 lines. That's that.
Perfect. So there are some comments. First one is from Sutapa. She's saying, I don't know he or she, so sorry if I choose the right wrong pronounce. So they are saying that since I do not have an .edu mail account, I worry I might end up in the spam section. You should give us an .edu ID. That
Yeah, they should, but what can you do? And you definitely would land in some spam folders. But like the first position, the position at Columbia that I got was through my personal email. So I did not have an organizational email back then, but I still got the position. So it's not that you would end in the spam all the time or people won't reply to you all the time. So yeah.
right. Trisha says, can you tell us how we can get ourselves a Danish if that's how you spell it?
get ourselves a Danish. Why is he not here? So यार अभी कॉल करके बताऊंगी उसे. So the thing is, like, in my first, he was my CR in the first semester, and I used to pick his brain a lot because
here.
you're here. Oh
I'm
yes,
here.
here. Okay, so people want a Danish for themselves. So he was the CR, and I would bug him in my first semester for all the practicals and assignments and everything. And he was very nice. He would answer me immediately, and he's very nice. Thank you, Danish. And nowadays, I also want to, like, revert back and help him out and not have him do everything. So we would usually divide the assignments and be like, oh, you just do this part, you do this part, and then we'll just send it, and nobody cares. So if your CR is as good, then probably you'll get a Danish.
She is exaggerating. Okay, I don't do anything right.
Then
She does most of it.
Yeah, everybody being
Okay,
naughty.
you can praise each other in your personal. So don't mind.
Are there more questions? Writing review paper, or I think Khushi is cracking.
Khushi
Yeah,
got
and
stuck. Yeah, I'll
she's
read
our
out.
CR,
Then.
so we really like love her.
Khushi, we lost you for like 10
Oh,
more seconds. Yeah. No issue. Yeah,
am I
continue.
clear now? Am I clear now?
No, you're still.
I'll just take the last question.
Okay, am I clear now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you are clear.
I was just saying that I was acknowledging Vaishali here. Vaishali is our CR. She's doing a fabulous job.
Oh, that's
She's
nice.
our
I can't
CR, and,
imagine
like, we
being a
have
CR.
relied completely on her.
That's so cool.
And trust in building is not a new thing here. Okay, I guess we're done with the Q&A and everything. So if
No,
there's
actually,
anyone who wants to,
Bhupender question is left. Yeah, so writing review paper or research paper and getting it published, I guess that will be, which will enhance the skill at bachelor level, which will more enhance the skill.
I don't like. Is this a question? Writing review paper or research paper and get published, which will. So just to like, publication, having a publication is not a necessity or an absolute requirement. It is definitely a good thing on your profile, but it is not like a requirement or anything. So if you get a chance to help out professors or work on a research project, that is really cool. But in case you have, like, no research experience, you could definitely mention about the practicals you did in your college coursework. You could talk about the assignments you did, because those are all research related activities. So yeah, that can be. Otherwise, maintain a blog. I always encourage people to maintain a blog. It represents what you're interested in, and it will give you a chance to practice academic and creative writing in general. So
blog writing, networking, communicating, opening up, being able to, like, always open to learn, curiosity. These are some of the key aspects that we can take away from the session.
and learning a programming language.
Learning a programming language. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay,
So,
Anshita,
is there anything else?
I have a follow-up question. I'm sorry, I'm bombarding you with questions.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah, like, we are the organizers, and we were more excited. Like, okay, we'll get all our answers finally. Thank you. So yeah, so Anshita, like you mentioned, like, we have to approach lab managers, and so should we wait like end of a fall or end of the spring to approach them, or any point of the year would have the same impact?
Any point of the year would not have the same impact, but any point of the year should be fine, because they would usually revert back to you saying that, oh, you could reach out again in this month, because that is when we'll be opening, but then you will be in the list. So in case one of the research assistants decide to leave in between summer or in between fall, they might revert back to you saying, oh, we now have a position open, do you want to, like, join? Are you still interested? Because it happened with me a couple of times that people reverted back to me saying that, oh, I just saw your email from earlier. Are you interested in joining the lab still or something? So it's always a good thing to just approach and be in their radar or something.
So cool. And could you also mention like how you landed with that IIT Roorkee? I think Roorkee, right? Yeah,
Roorkee.
that in
Yeah, it
that.
was the same way. I just emailed professors at IIT Roorkee, IIT Delhi, and a couple of like my own professors were not replying to my WhatsApp messages. So I was like, if I want to experience research in India, I think I should like reach out to people outside of my university. I reached out to a couple of professors at LSR and other colleges, but they weren't working on any projects because of COVID. So I reached out to this person over email, and the next day he called me. Like my phone number was on the resume. He just called me, which I found a little bit unprofessional. But then we hit it off. We talked, and he's really nice, and he's helping me out with a lot of the things. So yeah, mostly emailing, but it's just that people here in India, they don't look at their emails a lot, even professors, so it might be like a hard thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's very true. Your own college professors, they don't reply back, and this is very sad. I mean, we always want to start with a comfort zone, right? If you start like it's always good to start with someone, your own professor, but then reaching out is the main thing that we all took out from. I mean, this is our takeaway from this session.
Yeah, like you will not imagine. I reached out to my professors for a recommendation letter, and I followed up 2 times, and then too they don't have the courtesy to just respond that I will not be able to provide you a letter of recommendation. I mean, it is so hurtful. My entire future depends on these small things, and it's just sad to see how some professors like don't really care about the students as much.
Yeah, I think in one of your meme also you mentioned like writing a recommendation. You have to write your own recommendation letter. Yeah, so sad.
So annoying. Yeah.
And one last question I have.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you can just complete your sentence. Sorry to
Yeah, I was just saying I have to talk about these things with people at Columbia University, and they're like, "What? Really? You have to write your recommendation? That is so unethical," and things like that, and it's kind of embarrassing, honestly. But what can you do? Go ahead.
Yeah, it is sort of. Yeah, I was just asking that there is an option to pursue a BSc in psychology in India, mainly in the South India. So, do you know any major difference between the 2 degrees, a BA1 and a BSc1? So, do you have any idea about it? Actually, one of my juniors wanted to know, and she asked me, but I didn't know at that moment.
So I feel like, as far as I've heard from my friends at Christ, I think it's just Christ and a couple of other universities that often offer a BSc. It is more research oriented. Christ and universities that offer a BSc. So I feel like they're more research oriented. And back then, when I was choosing, I wasn't interested in research at all. So, and moreover, I did not have a lot of choices with my colleges because of the stupid boards or whatever. So I just I jumped at the first thing that offered me psychology, and I got into Zakir Hussain. So that's my story.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So there is a question from another Khushi. Hi. First of all, hi. I'm also Khushi. So, hi Anshita. Do professors hire international students for RA's position? Because everything is online now. Will they still hire a RA from India during offline classes?
First of all, my spelling is wrong. It's Anshita. And I feel like they would be recruiting, even though like opportunities could be limited now because things in the US are opening, but it won't be completely gone because a lot of the things during the last year or like last a lot of months, they have moved online. Even the studies that are going on, the research studies that are going on, people have switched to Zoom, or like even the data collection is going online. But labs which are focused on neuroscientific methods like fMRI and EEG methods and things like that, they won't be able to offer a position online because it would mostly require being in the lab and like with the machine and stuff. So like you'd have to go under the fMRI machine or whatever. So definitely it would be good to check in with them if you could, and like be transparent. You could let them know that I don't have a lot of opportunities and that is why I'm reaching out to you and I'm interested in what you're doing, and I'd be happy to help you out virtually or something. So that should be helpful.
Okay, so I guess it was the last question. We can end the session now. I'll just like to invite Vaishali for the thank you note, and we can just end up the session, close the session here.
Sure.
Hi, Anshul. Since we
Hi.
have come to the end of the session, so yeah, I'm really very thankful that you showed up on behalf of my team, and the session was really mind-blowing. It was amazing. We could connect to you. Many of the times it happens that the speaker is saying something and we could not connect and we could not feel the connection, but with you it was like, yeah, we experienced the same. So it was really great. It was mind-blowing. And apart from that, guys, do follow Anshita on her Instagram or as well as on her LinkedIn. You have seen the session. She gives a lot of valuable tips which will be helpful to you. And do follow EGOG Minds for more such sessions. And thank you, Darshana Didi, for giving us the chance for this initiative. We are really thankful to you as well. Stay tuned and have a great day, everyone.